So Mauricio Pochettino lasted just one season at Chelsea, which sadly makes him one of their longest tenured managers in quite some time. But now that they've mutually agreed to part ways, it's time to look back at where to place the blame. Is it on Pochettino? Is it on Chelsea? A little bit of both? What went wrong? We're going to take a look at what that is here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. So there are lots of good reasons to fire a manager, from underperformance to lack of motivation from the players, and lots of others. But I'm not sure any of those are why Mauricio Pochettino is no longer the manager at Chelsea. So we're going to talk about what we're hearing here, but before we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get down in that comment section. Was this a rash move by Chelsea? Should Pochettino have been given more of a chance? Did he last too long? Let me know what you think down in that comment section. You can send me some comments on Twitter as well at Pitchside Pub, and of course check out the website pitchsidepub.com. So again, lots of reasons to fire a manager, and I'm not going to get into whether or not Pochettino overachieved, underachieved, should have been given more of a chance. You can make arguments on both sides. I have argued that I think he did pretty well, given a very young roster with a ton of turnover. I argued that as they were ending their season and approaching a European spot for next year. So I thought he did a decent job, but I'm not breaking down the film here. That's not really the point. The point here is the thinking and the reasoning behind managerial changes, because this is what Chelsea continues to get wrong, as they've now had 6 different managers over the past 2 years and are yet again in the market and are starting to, they have to wonder if they're going to get the biggest name managers because of this insane track record of firing managers. So like I said, lots of good reasons. If the team is underperforming, they lack motivation, they don't look technically sound, and if you want to make those arguments as to why that's why Pochettino got fired, I will listen to that, because that makes sense. There's a logic behind that, and if you have good evidence to show that those things are true, then yes, that feels very justifiable. But that's not what I'm seeing, that's not what I'm reading, that's not what I'm hearing from Chelsea fans, from journalists that are covering the team, from analysts. Those aren't the reasons I'm hearing. Here's the reasons that are being given for Pochettino's firing. 1, his style of football did not fit the style of players that they have. Okay, that's a problem, but that feels like Chelsea's problem. 2, he overworked them in training and led to injuries, and his style was antiquated. Okay, well that would be a problem, but I feel like it's one we should have known about. We'll get to that in a second. And 3, he wanted more control over transfers and the team that was going to be on the pitch and the players he was going to have to work with. Again, fair. But all of this comes back to, shouldn't they have seen this coming? Shouldn't Chelsea have known all of these things? What changed from a year ago when he was hired, less than a year ago when Mauricio Pochettino was hired, to now when they are parting ways? What changed in Mauricio Pochettino to make them think at one point that he was the answer to now thinking he was not? And to be fair, he was not fired. They mutually agreed to part ways. So part of this was on Pochettino, and I would ask the same of him. What did you think was going to happen at Chelsea? And I would say that to any of the other managers that are potentially being linked with the Chelsea job. Before you get into bed with Chelsea, look at what has happened with Graham Potter and Thomas Tuchel and now with Mauricio Pochettino, and look at the track record here before you get in there and think you're going to have some say. So let's take the first one, the style of play. Well, we know what kind of manager Mauricio Pochettino is. You also know what players you have on your roster. So if you don't think they're a good fit, how in the world did you justify hiring this manager in the first place? With club football, unlike on national teams, you need to adjust your style of play to the talent pool that you have, or hire a manager who can make the most out of them because their style fits. But on the club team, as we've seen with Chelsea more than anywhere else, you are free to make your moves, and they've had money and they've had turnover. They have identified these players as who they want. How in the world could they have justified hiring a coach, a manager, whose tactics and strategy did not fit well with the players that they have. You either have to hire a manager for the players that you have deemed to be the best ones that you can get, or you need to get that manager the players that fit his style. You can't do both, or you can't do neither in this case. So that explanation just doesn't resonate with me. I don't understand how we get to this point. You know what kind of manager Pochettino is. You know what style he wants to play. You know what players you have. If one doesn't fit the other, don't hire the guy. So if you're doing that, you're just hiring a big name, and you are ignoring the actual tactics, and you're basically just playing FIFA or Football Manager. You need to match the players that you have and the talent and their skills with the manager that you have, or you need to go get him the players that fit his style. So that is a fundamental institutional failure on the part of Chelsea to hire a manager whose style of play did not fit the players they have and then refuse to go get him those said players. The second one is the training thing, and I'm not at Chelsea training, so I don't know if he's running them into the ground and if he's leading to part of the rash of, if he's part of the cause of the rash of injuries that Chelsea had this season, and they did have a ton of injuries. Is Mauricio Pochettino partially to blame for that? Well, possibly, but I'm guessing he's not doing anything at Chelsea that he didn't do at PSG or any of his other stops. So, didn't you do any research on your manager before you made this multi-million-dollar move for your billion-dollar operation? Didn't you look into his training methods? Did they suddenly become antiquated at Chelsea? That can't possibly be true. Whatever he's doing at Chelsea has to be the same stuff he was doing at previous stops. And if they're a problem now, they had to have been a problem before. Didn't you talk to anybody? Anybody that has worked with him, anybody that has played for him? Has this not been a problem in the past? There is no way that his methods all of a sudden just became antiquated and caused injuries. That is not logical in any way. So what happened? Was no research done? Did you just hire the biggest name and assume he was a good fit without doing any research? So this one doesn't add up as well. Again, what has changed from the hiring to the parting ways? I would bet you anything, I bet you my whole channel, he has not changed the way he goes about running training. And he is known for high-intensity training, high intensity on the pitch, a lot of running, physically taxing. We knew that. I know that. I'm sitting here in America, and I knew that. So how did Chelsea not know that, and how did they not think this was going to happen? So again, strike two on Chelsea for not doing their research and not knowing what they were bringing in, because none of this, neither of these things, his style of play or his training methods, should have been a surprise to Chelsea. So strike 1 and 2 on Chelsea. The third part, Pochettino wanting more control over the players and the transfer market. So that is a fair request, but what did he think he was getting into at Chelsea? Now, maybe he was lied to. Again, I'm not there behind the scenes. I don't know the conversations that were had. So maybe he was lied to. Maybe Clear Lake and Bowley and everybody said, yeah, we'll give you lots of input. And then when he went to give his input, they said, no, we don't want to hear it. And if that's the case, strike 3 on Chelsea, you're out. But I do have to assume some of this lies on Tuchel for assuming he would have some say in the transfer market and in the player acquisition of a club that clearly has come in with a very set model of how they want to operate. And again, I'm not going to get in this video to the validity of that model and if it's a good strategy to go after all these young players. That's a discussion that we've had a lot and is for a different time. But we all know what it is. We know what their acquisition model is. It's to go out and get a ton of high-priced young talent. And they have a certain type of player that they like, and they're going to do that whether you are the manager or not. And if Mauricio Pochettino thought that he could come in and somehow things would be different when they've already fired Tuchel and they've already fired Graham Potter and they've already fired Frank Lampard a couple times, and for him to think it was going to be any different is wildly egotistical on Pochettino's part. So I assume he shares some of the blame for thinking he would have more say than he did, unless they just boldly lied to him. But that gets back to my main question. The common question, the common denominator I always ask when there's a firing is, What has changed from the point where you hired this manager and thought he was the answer to the point where you're letting him go? And again, this was not a firing, this was a mutual parting of ways, but they were certainly considering firing him. It was mutual. And so what has changed? And did you promise him he was going to have a say, or did he think he was going to be able to change your mind, or what? But if that's part of the reason why he left, I got to tell you, Mauricio, you should have seen the writing on the wall there. So a lot of blame to go around, but it seems to me Chelsea did not do any research on who they were getting, and it doesn't sound like Mauricio Pochettino reads the papers or has a good handle of what he was getting into at Chelsea. And this should be a warning to other managers who are considering jumping to Chelsea. You're not going to have a say either. And you better win quick because the expectations are incredibly high. And you better have a style that fits with the players they have because you're not going to get a say on replacing them. And that's what you're getting into at Chelsea. So, buyer beware, coach beware before you get into it. But this whole situation is a mess. There are lots of reasons to fire a manager. There are very few reasons to fire 5 managers in 2 years. And at the end of the day, no matter how justifiable any of these individual firings were, the fact that they continue to happen is an organizational failure from the very top at Chelsea. And that's the track record there, and that's what will probably continue to happen. Get in that comment section. Let me know what you think. Again, it's not just about Pochettino. It's about the whole organizational philosophy. But get down in that comment section. Let me know if you think he should have been sacked, if he should still be around, if it should have happened months ago, if he never should have been hired. Either way, get down in that comment section. Let me know what you think. You can leave some comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. Make sure you follow the channel. Hit that subscribe button for me down below. Like the video. Turn on those notifications. They really help. And check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.